Hey, what's up guys? In this video, we're gonna be creating a cute cafe hopping app using React Native for the Expo. We'll also be using Firebase as backend, and we'll also be using Google Maps API to access the locations of cafes. So I know it's gonna be a lot of work, but we're gonna have so much fun because we're gonna learn a lot. So without further ado, let's get coding and have some fun. Okay, let's first take a look at what our final product should look like. So we want to have a login sign up screen, and we want the map screen, which you can see right now, and we want to see the details of the cafe, read your friends' reviews, look up the menu, and write your own review, and also be able to add friends and remove friends and accept friend requests and also send out friend requests. Great. And we want to be able to load cafes at the location the user chooses. So if you point to a new location, the new cafes should show up. Let's first create a folder for our app. Then we go inside the folder and we'll create an Expo app using npx create Expo app at latest version. Then we want a blank template. We'll let that install, and after that we'll have that open in VS Code. Next, let's run it in our simulator. I'll be choosing iPhone 15 Pro to run our Expo app. Then we type npx expo start to start our Expo, and that'll take a while. Then if we click I, then it should download the Expo Go app for you, and if you click I again, the app should load. There we go. Now let's create our Firebase project. I'll leave the link down in the description. Very first thing we do, we set up the name for our app, and we just go along. We do not have to set up the analytics. I did it right here, so we'll just go along with that for now. And we need to create a web app because we're using React Native. We let that load, and we'll be needing the bigger chunk of code right here. And to add Firebase to our Expo app, we need to use npx expo install Firebase Expo Auth session. We let that load, and we install React Native.environment because we'll be needing our environmental file to store our API keys. And very first thing we do, create the firebase.js file and paste the code that we just copied. And we do not need those analytics file, but instead we'll be needing the authentication ones, which I'm adding right here. And we'll also be needing async storage. This is for making sure the users stay logged in even when they close the app. Nice, and we'll be setting up the auth, and this is very important because we'll be using that in most of our screens. And we're adding the permanence from async storage so that the user stay logged in, and we're gonna export auth. Then we install React, the async storage that I've been talking about. Great. Now we go back into our file and we create the environmental file. And this is where we store all our API thing. Now let's go back to Firebase and we'll be creating this authentication thing. And we'll just say get started, let that load, and in our sign-in method, we'll be using email password for this app. And we have that enabled. We also have to set up our Firestore. It's in the same place as before, and we create. Then we just click next, and we'll be using the test mode. And there we go. We need to create components, so we'll do that in components file, and we'll have 4 main ones for now: Auth Screen, Map Screen, Friend Screen, and Cafe Detail Screens. For now, we'll have placeholders for them set up, and that would just be simple text. Great. Now we want to have that shown in our app, so we want to see if it runs. And if we run npx expo start, we can see at the very top that the auth screen is working. Alrighty, now I want to create a global color so that we can use it across all of our pages. Nice. Now we go back to our Auth Screen and we're going to import it from global styles. And we would have to use double dots for that. Now let's import all of our assets files into our assets folder. I'll leave my GitHub description down so you can just copy everything from there into here. We're gonna create constants to store our username, password, email, and all of those stuff, so we would need to use useState. And these are all the components that we would need in Auth Screen, so I have them imported from React Native. And also we're going to use our previously written Firebase.js file and importing auth from there. Then we'll be needing these functions from Firebase auth. Great, and now let's import Firestore. And we'll be initializing our database from Firestore. Great. Now all we have to do is write our constants. We have email, password, username, error message, and also to check if it's logged in or not. Then we would need a safe area because we don't want our content to be touching like the time and everything that's on the very top of the screen. And the layout that we want is we want an image that like represents our like logo, and then we'll have input fields for username, emails, and password. And I have like the style names written here, and we'll import it later. For emails, make sure to change your keyboard type to email address. And for password, we will want it to set it as secure text entry so it doesn't show. We'll be having two variations. We want, if it's sign up, then we would want the username, email, and password fields, but if it's just logging in, we want only the username, the email, and password fields. And that's what we're trying to do right here. And on pressing the buttons of login and sign up, we want to change if we're doing a login or a sign up actions. So great. Now let's write our functions. First, let's start with sign up. And we want to always initialize the error message to be empty before everything we begins. And also check if the fields are all entered. If not, we want to. Let's now write our logic for a profile picture. So we're gonna have 4 different profile pictures, and we're gonna randomly assign a number of the index of our profile picture array, and we're gonna have 4 colors: blue, red, orange, and green, which we'll write later. And we're gonna be logging in using Firebase create user with email and password function, and we would need auth, email, and password. Then we also want to specify a unique user ID to each user. Then we're gonna create a collection called users in Firebase, and we're creating a document with name, email, profile picture, and friend request, send request, and create add. This way we can refer it back when we create our friends screen later in our project. And if there's an error, we're gonna throw it right there. That's for sign up, and now let's do login. We do the same. We're gonna first set our error message to empty. Then we're gonna check if the email and password fields are empty or not. And if it's true, then we're gonna use sign in with email and password from Firebase, and we're gonna catch errors. That's it. One more thing, we need to create our metro.config.js file. That's because React Native use a JavaScript bundler called Metro, but when we're using Firebase Auth, then Metro cannot recognize it, so we would have to create our custom, add our preference to metro.config.js so that they recognize our usage of Firebase. We also need to make sure our custom imported font in our assets folder is recognized, so we will have to specify that in our app.js file, and the name of our font is Pixelfy, and we got that from Google Fonts. And we're going to import Expo font so that we can use our custom fonts. Great, now let's try to run it. npx expo start, and expo go should run, and if we click I, then this is what it should load. And we're trying to sign up our name, Monica23, sign up, and if we look at our Firebase and refresh, there we go, and we have our users as well. We're gonna work on our map screen. So before we do that, we need to edit our app.js file. And I have imported everything we need from Firebase, React Native, and Firebase Auth. And we're importing our Auth Screen and map screen because we want to work on our navigation here. And we would also need our React Native gesture handler. And we're going to import colors from global style. And our Firestore to get our documents, users information. And we'll also need our navigation controller because we want to add our zoom in, zoom out in our map screen. We declare our database, and now we're going to write our constants. We want to store our user, and we want to see if our page is loading. Now let's work on our format for app.js. And we want save area view, and then inside, first we want to check if the app is ready to load. So we're gonna have our loading screen. And I'm styling that right here. And we need to make sure we put our condition that is loading. And if it's loading, we want to check if the user is logged in. If not, we want to direct them to the authentication screen. If everything works, we're gonna go into our map screen. And we will need to have our navigation set up. So that's what we're gonna do right now. And the very first thing we're gonna set up is our map. And this is our styling for that. Nice. Now we have to write our stack screens. And of course map. Then we want to add our text in the middle of the notification. Want to say hi username, and on the left we want to have the user the option to log out. And we're just inserting the image for logging out. And on the right, we want to navigate it to our friend screen, but we're gonna do that later when we have more information on our friend screen. Just formatting our document. Then let's see, when we run, of course we have bugs because we forgot to install our libraries. So first we need to install React Native Gesture Handler. And if we run again, we'll see we have another error. And that's because we need to install React Navigation Native library. And we run again. Then we have to install React Navigation Native Stack. Okay, it should work. But we forgot to import our style sheet. So we're gonna do that. And if we run again, there we go. Now let's work on our logout function. And we'll be using the sign out function we have written above. And we'll also need our map screen wrapper and the app load. Nice. Next, let's go to our Google Cloud. Make sure to create an account. And after that, we'll be creating our new project. Choose a name that you like. And you just have to click create, let it load, then go to the very top and you'll see your project name, and if you select it, you'll get your API key, and make sure you copy it because we're gonna be needing that. Now let's go to our environmental file and create our Google API key. And paste. Let's install Expo location, and we're gonna need that in our map screen, so we're gonna import that in the very beginning. Then I'm importing all the libraries we need right here, and we also need to import our global colors from global styles and I'll also be importing arrow image because we're gonna need that on our call out, which is when we click on a cafe, it will show the details of the cafe. And we also need our navigation because we're gonna be navigating to our friend screen from also map screen and also the cafe details screen. And these are all the constants we would need in our map function, map screen. And those are location, select a location, cafes, error message, region, and page token, and if we want to see if we want to load more cafes. And we're specifying our API parameters. So radius is in meters, and we're gonna be finding cafes using our Google Map API. And we're creating the map view from Expo location, and our reference is map ref. And we're gonna be styling that. And on press, we're going to look at the coordinate that we pressed at. And we set that location. And initially our page token will be no. And we want to enable where the user is right now, and also we want the user to be able to zoom in and zoom out. We're going to create a marker that specifies the selected location. And initially when it uploads, it's going to be the current user's location, but they can point to a different location and the pointer will move there. And now we're going to render our cafes. And this cafe we're going to get from the API, Google Map API call that we're going to write very soon. But for now, we're going to write our call out that is going to be a little bubble that shows above the cafe when we click on any cafe we like. And if we click more on that call out, we want it to navigate to cafe details view. And we're going to use the cafe ID as a key, and we'll be storing their coordinates from the latitude and longitude that we get from the API. Then we want our title and description of the cafe, and for our image we use that as a pointer to where the cafe is, and that is our imported image. And on press, we want to stop propagation, and we need this so that the pointer that shows the location that we want does not move to the cafe. Nice. And now we're going to style our call out. And we want our title of the cafe and also the description. And below that we want an image, the arrow image that we imported, to indicate that this call out is pressable. And now we're going to create our custom zoom buttons, zoom in and zoom out buttons. If we click on the zoom in button, we want to use our zoom function that we'll write later. Just copy that and when we have more cafes that are available to load, we're going to use page token. That's because the API only loads 20 cafes per call. So if we sense that we have reached our limit of 20, we're gonna do another API call so we can load more cafes. That's our little workaround on our limitations. And this is the little load more button that we want at the bottom center of our screen. Now's the fun part. We're gonna write our functions. And the very first one is to fetch nearby cafes. And we're gonna use the latitude, longitude from our map. And we'll set our URL for API call, latitude, longitude, radius, key, and if there's a page token, then we're gonna add our page token to our URL. Now that we have our URL, we can use our API call await fetch URL. Good. And we get our data response into our data constant. And if our data is okay, and if the page token exists, we're gonna add more cafes from the data. And if not, it's our first time, then we're gonna set data to results. And we're gonna update our page token. And this is for us to just know that it's successful and our number of cafes that we loaded. Nice. And if there's an error, then of course we have to do our error message saying we failed to fetch cafes and why. Now let's write the use effect for when the app first loads. We will need a constant that determines if it's mounted or not. And we'll set that to true in the beginning. And we're gonna get location and fetch cafes. And the very first thing we need to do is we need to request access from the user's device. And if it's not granted, we can't do anything. So we're just gonna say permission denied, and we just return. And however, if access is granted, we're gonna get current position, and we're gonna get their location coordinates, and we're gonna set it, and we're gonna get our selected location coordinates and also our region. Nice. And then we're just gonna use that to fetch nearby cafes. And if there's an error, we just say there's an error. Let me fix our syntax and brackets later. And if it's mounted, we're gonna set error to fail to get a location. And in the end, we're just gonna get location and fetch cafes, the one just we wrote, and we're gonna return as mounted false. Nice. This is when it first loads. Now we're gonna do another one. When the selected location changes and we have to fetch more cafes. If we ever select that location, then we're going to fetch nearby cafes using our selected location. And set region to previous plus change in latitude. Okay, we're missing a bracket. There we go. And we're just going to say select a location, want to change, then we're going to do this. Let me format the document so it looks better. And now we're going to work in our zoom in, zoom out thing. If our input is in, then we want to reduce it by, and we want to increase to 2. And if it's not, we'll reduce that. We're just creating our new region, the coordinates, and this is the logic. And after we have set our coordinates, we want to use that to load more cafes. And we have to first check if there's a page token. And if it's loading more, we want to set it to true. And then we're going to fetch more cafes using our location. And after all that, we just have to set that loading more to false. Great, now let's handle our edge cases. And we just want to add our error message, and I'm going to style that right here with a red text. Nice, and now we need to add our loading screen if the region's not loaded yet. So we're going to style that here too. Amazing, and this is the style that I just imported. And now let's try to fix our errors and run. And we have this error, so we have to import React Native maps. And once we do that, we have it up and running. First, we need to initialize our cafe details in our app.js file. And we're going to do that right here. And we're also going to pass our props, including user, into cafe details view. Nice. And we want to import the cafe details screen in app.js. If we run it, this is what you should have. Then let's go to our cafe details screen. And this is everything that you need, the libraries. And we're also importing our screen height from dimensions, initialize our database, and also these are the full words that we want to find in the Google review that we're going to import. We'll write our functions later. Let's begin with our format. So we're going to import the route and current user as props. And these are all the constant we need: cafes, friends, and all of that, Google review, and your local review. And this is the URL for fetching photos from the Google review. And the layout will be, we first have our cafes, selected cafe title and their address. Next, we want our photo on the right of the screen, and we use our photo URL. Good. And next, we're gonna have 3 tabs, and we're gonna write that in our cafe details tab view. It's gonna be a separate view, but we're going to use these as props into our cafe details tab. Good. So we'll just create that here. And before that, I just wanted to import the styling. And now let's write our functions. The very first one is to extract our menu keywords from the Google reviews of each cafe. And for each keyword, we want to count how many keywords are there. And we check if the full keywords we have matches the keywords in the review. Nice. Now we're going to write our use effects functions. First, we want to query the reviews. So using our use effect, we query the cafe's collection, and we just want the reviews that our friends that we have added as friends in you yourself reviews are going to be shown. So that is what we're going to do here. If we find that, and we're going to push that into a review array. And next, let's fetch our Google reviews. We'll be using this URL. Then we use the data and set it as Google review. Else, we're going to set our Google review to empty. Then we want our average rating to be set and also the total ratings. If not, we're going to catch error, and we're also going to set our Google view to empty. Then we'll set our loading Google review to false, and if all of that pass, we will fetch the Google reviews every time we change a different cafe. Let's extract our menu keywords using our extract menu keywords function. And now we have to handle our view submission. We try by first adding a document with the cafe ID, and reviews, using the review and created at username and also user ID. And we catch it, and if there's an error, we throw an alert. And we're going to calculate the average rating of you and your friends. And if reviews are land is greater than 0, meaning if the reviews exist, we are going to reduce it to the average. Then we're going to fetch just a review of you and your friends. So we query the review if the user ID is either your current user ID or your friend's IDs is included in the user ID, then we're going to show the review. Now we have to work on our Cafe Details tab. First, we're going to import all the necessary libraries. Then we're gonna write our function. And these are all the props that we're going to use from the Cafe Detail screen. And we'll specify the tab icons that we're going to use for 3 tabs that we want in our Cafe Detail screen. Those are reviews, menu, form. And then we also have to specify the images we use for the menu items that we want to detect from the Google reviews. That would be matcha, sandwiches, and tiramisu. Great. Next up, we just have to write our function. And we're going to have 2 main things. That is render tabs and render tab content. Let's start with render tab. And as we have mentioned before, we want 3 tabs, and we're going to use touchable opacity as buttons. And they're reviews, menu, and form. We'll use the tab name as keys. And on press, we want to set the selected tab as the one that is being pressed, and we'll just style them. And we want to import the image of our tab icons. And below the images, we want to show the text of our selected tab. If it's review, we want to show the tab as reviews. Menu would be popular menu, and write a review for the form. Now we have to write our reviews menu and form. For reviews, we'll use the render reviews tab, and we're going to return view style.tab content container. We first want to show what the Google rating is, and then beneath that we want to show our average rating. And we're going to write our star rating component later, and we have that for now here. Okay, now is our average rating. Now we have to load our reviews. If review doesn't exist, we want to show a text that says no reviews yet. Or else, if reviews exist, then we're going to have a scroll view that maps out all the reviews that we have fetched. So for each review, we want to have our item ID as key, and we want the username, and next we want to create the view with the style inline row and margin bottom, and we want that to show the stars of our review. So we're going to use the star rating again, which we haven't created yet, but we will soon. Then we'll have our text that indicates the rating number. And of course, we're going to import the comment of the review and the date and time the review was created at. That sums up our review tab. Trying to figure out where the error is. We'll come back to that later. For now, let's move on to our menu. We're going to load our Google review, and if the indicator is small, we're just gonna do that, and then if the length is 0, then we're gonna say no popular items mentioned. But if everything passes, then we're going to map the word and we're going to create the image of the word. Nice, now we move on to our form. We'll be rendering form tab. And it's the same as before, padding 10. Now let's render our content. So we just have to have 3 switches with cases, reviews, menu, and form. And we return to their respective tabs that we have created. Great. I realized I made a few errors. Instead of styles, I've been reading global style. So make sure to change that back. And lastly, I just imported all the styles in the bottom. And let's write our review form. So I imported all the libraries that we need, and we can start writing our function. And our prop takes in the cafe ID and the on submit. And these are the constants that we need: rating, comment, and those are the 2 fields that our form has. And I just imported the style, and we're going to have our style review form container. That will be the rating that you want to give to the cafe. And we'll have our text input for the actual review of the cafe that we are sending this form to. And lastly, we're going to have our button. When we click on it, we want to submit the review. If we run it, we have a bunch of import errors. Let's fix that. Here, right here, and here, more here, and here. Now let's work on our star rating.javascript file. We're going to import the rating and total star props. And we're going to map out the stars. And what we want to do is use the image star.png from our assets folder. And if the review is like 4 star, we're going to have 4 yellow stars, and we're going to add a tint of gray onto the star to show 4 out of 5 stars. And it's the same for everything else. And we're going to return our view with the generated star that we have right here. And we're going to import our style. And when we run it, we see this, meaning there's no tabs yet. Why? Because we haven't written in our functions. In our details tab. So we have to write our handle submit. And this is the catch for our rating. If it's like less than 1 or greater than 5, then it shouldn't be a review. And we just setting our submission. And we run again, we should see our tabs. There's an issue with the menu tab, so because we've got to return it, and we just do that, and it should work. Yep, it's showing up. Then we made some styling adjustments. We don't like the title and the address fonts, so we have to change it to our Pixelify one. And I'm just gonna format the document so it looks nicer. And when we run again, one more styling changes, and it works. First, we need to work on our app.js file, and we need to specify that we're going to have our front screen on the right side of our navigation on the map screen. So here we are adding our front screen using our touchable opacity button, and we'll use our profile.png as the image. Great. And we can begin working on our front screen. So these are all the libraries that we would need, and also import auth from Firebase. And of course, colors from global. I'm gonna import all the constants that we need for our front screen and also the styles. Now let's start doing our basic formatting for our screen. First, we would need to have our title, let's say 5 friends, and we also need an input. This is for the users to enter their friends' email to look up if their friends exist on our database. Then we'll have a cube button that says search, and we're going to use this cube button for everything else on the screen. So we might as well just create this component. And let's do that right here. It's a very basic button. We're just going to use our touchable opacity. And we want to have like different colors for disabled. And we're gonna just do our styling for our text. I'm just trying to figure out where the error is. Let's actually just keep going. We'll see that later. For the search results, we want to show the username and the button that says add friend. But first we need to do an edge case where there's no user exists in that particular email. We just say no users found. But if we do find them, we're going to map them out, and it can be like a few options. It can either be already a friend or it's pending. And this is our row that we're styling. So we'll have the profile image first, then we'll have your name, and we're going to have our buttons that determine if it's already a friend, if we're going to add them, or it's pending. Great. Let's move on to, we have the request, we have the search result, and now we want to view our friend requests. And we want the section to be a toggle, so we want it collapsed when the app first loads. And we'll have a little text that indicates the number of friend requests that we have. And we'll have a chiffon up and chiffon down to indicate whether our friend request toggle field is on or off. Now let's work on our friends and request section list. In our section list, we want to show all of the friend requests that we have. So if there's a friend request, we want to get our data from our friend request with names. Then we're gonna render our user row. And we'll have our Q button that says accept or decline. And we're going to have a title, your friends, and data is, if the length is greater than 0, then we know we have our friends, so we're going to show our friend's name. If not, we're going to just say you don't have friends yet. Nice. Then everything else, we just want to return our user role with our Q button that says remove if we're already friends with the person. Now let's fetch our user data using our fetch user data, and that will be an async function. And first we're going to get our document with users, user current ID, and we want a snapshot of that. And if the snapshot exists, then we're going to store our data, and we're going to set our friend data as data and fetch user by IDs using the Data.friend request and user by IDs using data.friends. And we're going to specify our fetch user by IDs function. Okay, next we're going to search our users, and it will be a query. But first, if we can search it, we just return it. But if we can, then we're going to create a query in our users collection where email is equal to the search text, the user email that has been inputted. Then for each result, we are going to create a document snap. Next, we're going to write a function that updates our friend request. And we're going to use our new data to update our friend documents. And we need this function to send, accept, decline, or move our friend request. First, we'll write our send request function. Next, we are going to accept our friend request. So we're going to filter. And we're going to decline. We set up our decline friend request using async, the same as the ones above. Nice. Our last one is to remove friends. Great. Now let's create a function that gets our profile image. This is basically just mapping the name to the file name of the photos we have in our assets folder. And we want the default to be profile blue. And our use effect is simple. We just want to fetch user data when there's a refresh change. Now let's write our render user row. Now we need to write our sections, and the very first one is search results. Good. And now we're gonna work on our friend request drop down that's being toggled. We have the accept and decline button, and if it's accept, we use accept friend request function and decline friend request functions. And we're going to push the title of friends, data, friends with names into our sections array. That's about it. And now we want to create our stack.screen for friends screen in our apps.js file. And we fix our error right there. It should have been double dots. Now let's fix some errors, starting with the C that should be capitalized right here. Then we want to make sure our onPress has no space, and there shouldn't be an extra S in the last character. Now let's write our key extractor. And render item, and also render section loader. If there's a title, we want to show the title. And if it's not, then we'll just have it as null. And make some styling. And when we run, we try to find friends, and there we go. And let's try logging in. And we can accept, and we're now friends. Let's try the review. For some reason, it's not showing up. There has to be an error. Let's try to figure that out. Okay, there we go. There's still an error. It's because it should be styles instead of global styles. It's still not showing up. Oh, yeah. Yay. Okay, everything seems to work now. And hey, if you're seeing this video, you made it to the very end. That's a lot of work, so congrats. And if you find this video any helpful or useful, please leave a like and subscribe. And I hope to see you again in the next one. Bye for now.